Well, good morning.
早上好，
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. I always love coming and getting to share with you.
很高兴有这个机会到这里和大家一起分享。
See, I'm already off script.
It's okay.
I want to share with you a little bit before I begin about the work of the Northern Plains District.
我首先分享一下我们北大平原地区这个所做的一些工作，分享。
And then have a chance to share with you from the Word of God.
然后我再分享一些主的话语。
When I talk about the work of the Northern Plains District, we focus on three things.
当我们在谈到这个北大平原地区的工作的时候，我们主要集中在3个方面。
Having healthy churches, building partnerships, and church multiplication.
拥有健康的教会，建立伙伴关系和增长教会。
Part of having healthy churches is helping churches find pastors. And that is a large part of the work that I am currently engaged in as a district superintendent.
在拥有健康教会这方面呢，我们主要是帮助我们这个地区的教会寻找牧师，这是我作为地区总监所从事工作的很大一部分内容。
We have filled several churches in the district. The church in Minot has a new pastor, and the church in Devils Lake has a new pastor.
我们已经帮助了我们本地区的几个教会找到了牧师，比如说Minot 的这个教会刚刚找了一个新牧师，然后还有一个 Devils Lake 的教会也刚刚找到了新。
Our church in Cooperstown is in the process of calling a pastor from Scotland. And this has been an interesting process because his need to obtain a visa for him to come to the United States.
我们的库珀斯坦的教会也正在从苏格兰招募一位牧师，在帮助他申请来美的签证，这个过程也很有意思。
That's probably a process many of you are familiar with.
这个一些过程可能大家都很熟悉了，我们作为中国人的话，都很熟悉这个过程。
When we filed this, we were told the waiting period has become 4.5 years for an R1 religious worker visa.
当我们提交这个申请文件的时候呢，我们就被告知说 R1 的这个签证的等待时间大概在1到4年半左右。
We received a letter 10 days later saying that it was approved.
对，在10天以后，我们收到了这个通知信，说这个已经visa 已经被批准了。
The people working with us said, if you want to see evidence of miracles, you just did.
我们一起工作人都说，如果你想看到奇迹，这就是奇迹了。
Now he is waiting on an interview to be done on his end, and we again were told that might be a year wait or it could be a 4-year wait.
现在这个牧师正在等待这个面试，他也是被告知说有可能等待1年或者是4年的时间。
Last week we just got word that interview is now scheduled for October 3rd.
上个星期我们刚刚得到消息说，面试将在10月3号。
We would ask that you be praying for the church in Cooperstown and for Pastor Robbie Brown as they go through this process.
也请大家为我们这个 Cooperstown 的教会还有这个罗比布朗牧师的面试祷告。
One of the ways that we build partnerships across our district is through our conferences. And this year we have a new conference that we are doing in the fall.
我们建立伙伴关系的方法之一呢，就是举办这个会议。我们将在今年的秋季将举办一次区域性的这个会议。
It's a one-day conference beginning at noon on October 23rd and ending at noon on October 24th.
这个会议呢是为期1天，从10月23号中午开始到10月24号中午结束。
The focus of the conference is on gender confusion and the church.
会议的重点是关于教会中的这种性别的困扰。
We have Dr. Matthew Epinette from the Center for Bioethics and Human Dignity at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School coming to be our speaker.
我们将邀请3一福音神学院的生物伦理学和人类尊严中心的马修Epinette博士来做报告。
We're going to talk about the ethics that go into dealing with transgender issues and how the church can respond biblically and graciously in the midst of these challenges.
在会议上，我们将讨论如何处理跨性别问题的道德规范，以及教会如何以圣经的根据和仁慈的做出这样的回应。
We are also continuing to work on multiplying churches across our district.
我们将继续努力致力于地区的教会增长。
In just a couple of weeks, the church plant in Castleton will celebrate its 2nd anniversary.
在几周以后呢，我们这个Castleton的这个教会要迎来2周年的这个时间。
We have another church plant underway in Hazen, North Dakota.
我们也正在北达科州的哈森建立起新的教会。
And a unique opportunity has come to us through a golf tournament that was held at our national conference.
有件很特别的事情，就是我们在举行全国会议上的时候，我们办了一次高尔夫比赛。
The golf tournament was held to raise funds for church multiplication and raised $25,000.
高尔夫比赛主要是为了教会增长的筹集这个资金，我们筹集了大概25000美元。
And those funds were to be given to one district to be used for church multiplication.
这些资金呢，主要是用于一些地区，用于这个教会的增长这个使用。
And the district chosen to receive those funds was the Northern Plains District.
就是我们的地区被选中了去使用这部分资金。
So how can you be involved in the work of the Northern Plains District?
你们怎么样来参与我们的工作呢？
The first and most important way is to pray.
第一个最重要的途径也就是祷告。
We have 4 members of our Northern Plains District staff: myself, Steve Oswald, who is our missions mobilizer, Brandon Boulay, who is our student multiplication director, our student ministries director, and Mike Lundberg, who is our church multiplication director.
在我们北部平原区有4名工作人员，Brian 牧师，还有 Stephen Oswald，他是我们的这个宣教动员者，然后 Brian Bolus 是我们的学生事工主任，还有 Mike Lundberg，他是我们教会增长事工的主任。
To remind you to pray for us, I'd encourage you to pick up one of the red notebooks. They're in the back there, and grab a pen with those, and just remind you to be praying for us as a district. You can write down prayer requests and continue to pray for the work of the Northern Plains District.
为了提醒您为我们祷告，我也带来了一些我们带有我们区标志的这些笔记本和笔，请你可以拿一下，然后你可以在里面写上你的 prayer list，这个祷告的祈求，然后还有为我们北部区的工作继续祷告。
You can connect with us.
你也和我们联系。
We would love to see you come to one of our conferences.
我们将会很高兴看到你在我们的会议上。
The fall conference is open to anyone who would like to attend, not just pastors.
对，我们的秋季的教会是向任何愿意参加的人开放的，不仅仅是牧师。
So we would love to have you come to that conference, and you can register for that on our website.
我们很高兴能够看到你在会议上。你可以在我们的网站上进行注册。
npdefca.com.
它的地址是 npdefca.com.
npdefca.com.
There you go. Website.
You could also come to our annual conference, which this year will be held in Grand Forks in February.
你也可以参加我们这个年度会议。这个会议将在今年的，也就是明年2024年的2月，在北大陆的Grand Forks 就大福克斯举行。
You can follow us on our website.
你可以在我们的网站上浏览我们的信息。
We have a monthly email newsletter that comes out, which you can sign up for on the website.
你可以在网站上注册，能收到我们每个月的邮件通讯。
We also have a Facebook page and Instagram account that you can follow.
我们也有脸书和这个 Instagram 的这个账号。
The final way that you can be involved with the work of the district is simply through the giving that your church does to support the work of the Northern Plains District.
最后一种方式，参与的方式就是你可以通过您的教会向我们北部平原区的工作做捐款。
I want to say thank you this morning for the support that your church does give to us.
今天早上呢，我想谢谢你们的教会对我们这个北部区教会的对我们工作的支持。
And if any of you here are individual donors to the district, I also want to say thank you to you.
如果你们当中有做出这种个人捐助的，我们也表示感谢。
If you'd like to give to the district, you can do that again on our website.
如果你想再次向我们区域的工作向上捐款的话，你可以访问我们的网站 npdefca.com。
Now we are going to turn our attention to the Word of God.
现在我们就是转向我们神的话语。
And our passage this morning comes from the Gospel of John 1 through 18.
今天早上的经文主要是约翰福音的第1章的第1节到18节。大家可以。
Was that read, or is that going to be up here?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll find out. Oh, okay. We'll just go.
大家可以拿wanna read it?
Did he read it already?
We just read one verse.
Okay, you read the whole thing.
Okay, I will read. Okay. 第1节，太初有道，道与神同在，道就是神。这道 太初与神在，万物是借着他造的，凡被造的没有一样不是借着造的。生命在他里头，这生命就是人的光，光照在黑暗里，黑暗却不接受光。有一个人是从神那里开来的，叫约翰。这人来，我要做见证，就是为光做见证，叫众人因他可以信。他不是那光，而是要为光做见证。那光是真光，照亮一切生在世上的。他在世界，世界也是借着他造的，世界却不认识他。他到自己的地方来，自己的人倒不接待他。凡接待他的，就是信他名的人，他就赐他们权柄做神的儿女。这等人不是从血气生的，不是从情欲生的，也不是从人意生的，乃是从生的。道成的肉身住在我们中间，充充满满的有恩典，有真理。我们也见过他的荣光，正是父独生子的荣光。约翰为他做见证，喊着说：“这就是我曾说，那在我以后来的，反成了我在我以前的，因他本来在我以前。从他丰满的恩典里，我们都领受了，而且恩上加恩。律法本是借着摩西传的，恩典和真理都是由耶稣基督来的。从来没有人看见神，只有在父怀的独生子将他表明出来。”
Thank you. This summer, I was a speaker at Cooperstown Bible Camp, and the theme for the summer was Jesus is enough.
今年夏天，我在库珀斯坦这个圣经营的作为一个讲演者，今年夏天的主题就是有耶稣就够了。
I pondered that theme for a while because it is not the theme one might think you would choose in our culture.
我思考的这个主题有一段时间，因为这个主题可能一般人都不会去选。
We do not value having enough, we value having more.
在美国的文化当中，我们不看重拥有足够，我们是看重拥有更多。
So I wondered, why was the theme not more of Jesus?
我就在想，为什么主题不是更多的耶稣呢？
We want to have more of him.
我们难道不希望拥有更多的他吗？
That's the trend of our culture. We always want more.
这是我们的文化，总是想要更多。
When I was at junior high, I finally moved to a town large enough to have a 7-Eleven.
当我在上高中的时候，我搬到了一个有 7-Eleven 的这个城镇。
And 7-Eleven, if you know, is the home of the Big Gulp.
大家都知道 7-Eleven 是那个Big Gulp， 我不知道 Big Gulp 是怎么翻译的，是个大饮料。
32 ounces of pop for 79 cents.
32盎司的汽水，你就要花7毛9。
And after that, after the Big Gulp, they came out with the Super Big Gulp.
当他们推出了这个 Big Gulp 的时候，然后又推出了这个 Super Big Gulp。
So you could get 44 ounces for just 10 cents more.
你都要多花1毛钱，就可以买到44盎司的，也就是8毛9，你可以买到44盎司的。
And the summer I moved there, they introduced the Double Gulp.
那夏天我搬到那，他们推出了一个64盎司的汽水，这个还专门带了一个，这个是64盎司的，当成这些呢用来浇花的，这个。
I just thought you were going to get really thirsty while you were translating.
Yeah, I want to pour some water there.
So yeah, it's like 64 ounces. That's almost an entire 6-pack, right, in your cup.
这个杯子可以装满6个包装。
So the theme is simple. People kept wanting more and more.
很简单，人们就是想要的越来越多。
We might wonder what's next.
我们想可能下个是什么？
The bucket gulp?
这个是个桶饮吧。
Walk up and take forever.
对，我们走过去可以放那个5加仑的桶，拿着5加仑桶走过去，然后把它装满。
And I'm not sure where they found this guy, but yeah, he's got a really big, yeah.
不知道他从哪里能找到这么大的一个桶。
You can see the same trend to more and more when it comes to televisions.
当我们谈到电视机的时候，我们也可以看到相同的趋势，也是越来越大。
Can anybody guess what the size of the first TV set was when it was first invented? How big was it?
有没有人可以猜，就是说第一个电视机的尺寸大小是多少？
3 inches.
9个英尺， 有9个inch， 3个inch，3个inch， 3 inch，
3 inches. It's like your phone.
就是像你的手机大小。
Eventually, they got to 9 inches.
后来变成了9个英寸。
And by the time they got to most people had one in their home, they were 12 inches.
当进入大多数人家庭的时候，他们就变成了大概12个英寸。
And they were probably surrounded by a wooden box with speakers on the side.
一般
Some of you remember what those look like.
一般电视机外面都有个大的木箱给它包着，然后扬声器在木箱的边上。有些人可能会记得这些。
By 1997,
1997年的时候，
the average size was 22 inches.
电视机的尺寸达到了22英寸。
Anybody guess what the average size is today?
你们知道现在电视机平均的尺寸是多少吗？
60? It's actually a little small. It's actually 51.
51英寸，现在的平均电视机的大小是5英寸。
They keep getting bigger and bigger.
电视机变得越来越大，
We want more and more.
人们就想要更多更多。
The next generation of TVs that's coming out.
下一代的电视机将会出来
Could。you help me? Yeah. You gotta hold that end. You know how big they're going to get in the next generation? Here, hold that. Got it? Hold that. The next generation they're talking about 100 inches.
下一代的电视机将会有100英寸的大小。
I don't have room for that over my fireplace.
我的壁炉上面没有这么大的地方放那个100英寸的电视机。
I sometimes wonder, I look at the TV ads and I see the ads for the bigger ones, and I go, ooh, I should get a bigger TV.
当我有时在看电视的时候看到这个广告，就想买一台大的。
But I wonder, would that really make my life better to have a bigger screen in my living room?
然后后来想，这么大的电视会让我的生活会变得更好吗？
Probably not.
可能不会。
Our culture is clear. We want more and more.
我们的文化很明确，就是想要更多更多。
And part of the problem is we don't understand what it is to have enough.
问题是我们不知道什么是拥有足够。
We have a negative view of having enough.
我们对拥有足够不太看好。
We think of enough as the bare minimum.
我们认为足够只是最低的限度。
It's like driving down a road in North Dakota and you really hope there's enough gas in your tank to get to the next town.
就像我们正在北达科他州的一条路上开车，我们真的希望我们有足够的汽油能够达到下一个目的地。
You should have stopped for gas at the last one, but you thought you had enough.
我们应该停下来把油箱加满，但我们总是认为我们已经有足够的汽油。
But that's not how we are to understand the idea of enough.
这不是我们所理解的足够。
Enough is the idea of that big holiday meal where you have eaten and eaten and eaten until you say, enough, enough, I can't have any more, enough.
我们的足够的定义就是像我们吃节日的大餐，你吃了很多很多，直到最后你才说，哎呀，够了够了，不能再吃了。
This is the sense in which Jesus is enough.
这就是我们有耶稣就足够的这一点意思。
There is no need for more of him because we already have all of him.
我们不需要更多的他，因为我们拥有他的全部。
In the passage that was read and the verse that you recited, verse 16, it says, for from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace.
在我们读到的这个约翰福音第1章第16节就说，因为从他的丰盛中，我们都领受了恩上加恩。
There are a couple of things we need to ask ourselves about that verse. First, what is this fullness that we have, or that Jesus has, and what is the grace upon grace that we receive?
关于这节经文呢，我们需要问自己一些问题。首先就是我们所拥有的，或者耶稣所拥有的丰盛是什么意思？而是我们所领受的这恩上加恩又是什么？
His fullness is defined in the passage by all the ways it describes who Jesus is.
所以这节经文呢，主要通过各种各样的方式来描述耶稣是 是谁来定义他的丰盛？
Jesus is God. He has all that it means to be God, all of the power of God, all the wisdom of God, all of the attributes of God, all the characteristics of God. He is fully God, and that is part of his fullness.
耶稣是神，他拥有作为神的一切，神的所有的能力，神的所有的智慧，所有的属性，所有的特性，他是完全的神，这是他丰盛的部分。
He is also the creator, and that is part of his fullness. And then he made everything that is.
他也是造物主这也是他丰盛的一部分。他创造现在的一切。
Jesus' life. He is the one who breathes life into us, and he is the one who laid down his life so that we could have eternal life.
耶稣就是生命，他是那一位将生命气息赐给我们的那一位，也是那一位为我们舍命的，使我们得到永生的。
Jesus' life, and Jesus is light shining in the darkness. He is the one who shows us the way in the dark.
耶稣是生命，耶稣也是照耀在黑暗中的光，他是在黑暗中为我们指明道路的人。
And Jesus is the one who took on flesh. He is God become one of us, come into this world to live as one of us, to be one of us, to experience all of the hardship and difficulty that this world can give.
耶稣也是那位道成肉身的，他是神，他成为我们当中的一员，他来到这个世界上，做我们中的一员，生活也是成为我们中的一员。 体验这个世界上所给予我们所有的艰辛和困难。
To experience all the joy and wonderful things that this world can give. He has experienced it and knows it all because he became one of us. Jesus took on flesh.
他喜爱这个世界上所给予的美好的事物，他都已经经历过，并且知道这一切，因为他成为我们当中的一员。耶稣道成人。
In all of that is Jesus' fullness.
所有的这一切都是耶稣的丰盛。
His fullness is that Jesus is God, Jesus is creator, Jesus is life, Jesus is light. Jesus took on flesh.
丰盛的意思就是耶稣是神，耶稣是创造者，耶稣就是生命，耶稣是光，耶稣道成人。
That fullness means then that he is completely filled up.
那丰盛就是意味着他已经完全被充满了，
He lacks nothing.
他什么都不缺，
He is all sufficient.
他就足够了。
And there is an abundance that he has from which to give to us. He lacks nothing, therefore we lack nothing.
他是丰盛的，他把一切都给了我们，他一无所缺，所以我也一无。
Even more, every believer has all that fullness.
更重要的是，每一个信徒都拥有这样的丰盛。
It says, all who believe become children of God.
所以相信的人都是神的儿女。
That means that all who believe receive grace upon grace from his fullness.
意味着所有相信他的人都会从他的丰盛里受恩上加恩。
Because I am a pastor, I don't have more of Jesus than you do.
虽然我是牧师，我拥有的耶稣并不比。
We have the same fullness. We have the same access to the fullness.
我们有同样的丰盛和完全，我们可以获得同样的丰盛。
He is God to me and he is God to you.
他是我的神，也是你的神；
He is my creator and your creator.
他是我的创造者，也是你的创造者。
Jesus gave life to me and gave life to you.
耶稣给了我生命，也给了你生命；
He is light to me and gave light to you.
他给了我的光，也给了你的光明。
Jesus took on flesh to die for me and to die for you.
耶稣道成肉身，为我而死，也为你而死。
We all share in his fullness the same. No one has more of Jesus than another believer does.
我们同样分享他的丰盛，没有一个信徒比另一个信徒更拥有更多的耶稣。
We all have his fullness, and from his fullness, he gives grace upon grace.
我们都有他的丰盛，并且从他的丰盛中，他赐给恩上加恩。
That really is to say, he gives good thing upon good thing.
就是这样说，就是他把好事都加给我们，
Or even more particularly, undeserved thing upon undeserved thing, because that is what grace is.
更加具体的说，就是他把那些我们不配的事情也给我们，这就是恩典。
It is something we do not deserve. It is receiving what we do not deserve, and it is from his fullness that he gives to us so many things that we do not deserve.
这些事情可能都是我们不应该得到的，但是我们接受这种不应该得到的东西，我们从他的丰盛中，他给了我们所不配得的这些东西。
There are many of those things that we could look at from this passage.
我们有很多事情可以从这段经文当中得到。
They would be tied to every one of the things that it says that Jesus is.
我们都可以
It's not on there. I'm adding. It's tied to every one of those categories. There could be good things.
就是和所有的事情都联系在一起。
But the one I want to look at this morning is particularly that Jesus is the creator.
我今天所讲的就是耶稣是我们的创造者。
And the grace upon grace that comes from knowing that Jesus is our creator.
我们知道恩上加恩，我们主要是来自知道是耶稣是我们的创造者。
Again, the passage says, all things were made through him, and without him was not anything made.
圣经上说是他是创造对现实。
Now I have some pictures to help us think about that.
我一些照片可以跟大家分享。
This first one is one of my favorites that I've ever come across. The map shows all visible structures out to 380 million light years, including 45,000 neighboring galaxies.
一个是我最喜欢的一个，它显示了一个3.8亿光年范围内的所有可见的结构，包括了45万这个邻近的。
That's too big.
Yeah.
Got too many zeros.
邻近星系。
Every one of those things.
每一个成员，这个东西的每一个成员，这个范围内的每一个成员。
Every star, every planet, every galaxy was made by him.
每一个星星，每一个星球，每一个星系都是他造的。
Was made when Jesus spoke it into existence.
当他说他存在的时候，他们就被创造了。
He is the creator of everything we see when we look up at the night sky.
当我们仰望夜空的时候，我们所能见到的一切都是他创造。
Even more, he's the creator of everything we can't see when we look up at the night sky.
他也是我们仰望天空时所看不见的这一切的创造。
Now that's really big, but how about something really small?
这是很大的东西，但是当我们来看看这些小的东西。
The atom.
原子。
Hydrogen atom, smallest atom, right?
一个氢原子，最小的原子。
The smallest building block of matter.
物质最小的组成。
Now, I'm not a scientist, and I know there are people here who are.
我不是科学家，但是我知道在座的当中有一些人是。
So I hope I get this right.
我希望我说的是对的。
But when I looked it up, it said that on the head of a pin, and this is a pen, not a pin, I know.
当我查到他说他这个是个针头，这是一支笔，不是一个 pin。
So it's probably bigger. But on the head of a pin, little point right here, you can put 10 million hydrogen atoms.
看，如果这是个针头的话，你可以容纳1000万个氢原子。
And I also read that one of you is made up of 10 to the 270th power of number of atoms to make one human being.
我还读到，就是说我们每一个人大概是有10的270次方的原子。
We can't see any of those building blocks.
我们看不到这些单独的这种构造模块。
But Jesus made them all.
但是耶稣创造了。
He spoke them into existence, just like he spoke galaxies into existence.
他命令他们存在，就像他命令星系的产生。
Okay, then I have some pictures of some of my favorite places.
接下来我想向你们展示一些耶稣所创造我所喜欢的一些地方的照片。
The first.
第一个。
All right, the first one. That is the Valley of Fire State Park in Nevada. I would say it was a really cool place to visit, but it wasn't. It was actually very hot.
第一个是内华达州的火焰谷州立公园。我想说这是个非常好玩的地方去玩，但事实并不如那里面真的很热。
And there were lots of signs everywhere to remind you that it was really hot, and if you left your car without water, you might die.
到处都有很多的警示牌，告诉你那里面真的很热。如果你离开车，如果不带水的话，那么你很可能会死。
But it was an amazing place to visit, to see the colors in the rocks and the formations They were amazing to see.
但是这确实一个很棒的地方，值得去。我们可以看到岩石的各种颜色，而且那里的地层形成也很令人惊叹。
This is a beach in Cape Town, South Africa.
这一张是南非开普敦海滩的照片，
One of the most beautiful places I have ever been to visit.
这是我去过的可能最美丽的地方之一吧。
It is a place where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Indian Ocean, where you get to see elephants and penguins in the same place. It is truly amazing.
是大西洋和印度洋交汇的地方，能同时看到大象和企鹅，确实是很神奇的。
Next to that picture is one a little closer to home. It is Glacier State Park.
这一张离就是我们这个家很近，对吧？这是我们滨川这个州立大公园照片。
And if you could see this little dot up there, is a little gray spot.
看到这个雪地上的一个黑点。
From where I was standing when I took that picture, we hiked all the way up there.
我就是徒步到那个地方。
That was crazy.
比较疯狂。
But it was amazingly beautiful. Hard to get to, but amazingly beautiful.
但是很美的惊人，那个地方不容易到达。
On the bottom here we have a meerkat.
下面是一个来自非洲的，是一个猫游。
And the other is African elephants.
另外一个是个非洲象。
I have always loved African elephants, and to see them in the wild was an amazing experience I will never forget.
我一直很喜欢非洲象，特别是在野外看到非洲象是个令人很惊奇的经历，永远不会。
I kept turning to the family that we were with and saying, "That's an elephant, and I'm in Africa, and that's an elephant, and I'm in Africa."
我总是对我的家人说：“哎呀，我现在在非洲，我看到大象了。我在非洲，我看到大象了。”
It was an unbelievable moment for me. And all of those things were made by Jesus, the Creator. Evidence of his fullness, evidence of the things that he gives to us, grace upon grace.
所有的这一切都是由造物主耶稣所创造的，这是他的丰盛的证据，是他赐给我们上加恩的证据。
And there's one more.
还有一个，
He made us.
他创造了我们。
He made you and he made me as unique individuals knit together in our mother's wombs.
他在我们母亲子宫里创造了我们，创造了你，也创造了我们每一个人作为一个独特的个体。
Made us to be who we are, created in his image, designed for his purpose.
让我们成为我们自己，按照他的形象创造了我们，也是为了他的目的，也是创造了、设计了我们。
He is truly the creator, the one who makes all things, and from that creation, he provides to us grace upon grace, good thing upon good thing, undeserved thing upon undeserved thing.
他是真正的创造者，创造万物的那一位。创造的开始，他就给我们恩上加恩，把好事加给我们，把那些不配给我们的事情也加给我们。
Paul picks up on this theme in Colossians 1.
保罗也在哥罗申书提到了这样的，
where he says this: He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together.
在哥罗西书第1章，他是这样说的：耶稣是看不见上帝的形象，是看不见的上帝的形象，是所有创造物的第一个诞生者。因为天上地上一切事物，无论是看得见还是看不见的，无论是王位、领地、统治者还是权威，都有他创造。万物都是通过他，并为他而创造。他在万物之前，万物都是靠他在一起。
So we see from his fullness as Jesus is creator, we receive good thing after good thing, grace upon grace.
所以我们看到，作为耶稣的创造者，从他的丰盛中，我们领受了一件又一件的好事，恩上加恩。
And part of that is reflected in that his power is enough for us.
部分原因在于他的力量能使我们已经有足够了。
Think about all that he made and spoke into existence by his word. And do we doubt then that Jesus has all the power necessary to accomplish his purposes, to act for our good and for his glory?
想想他用他的话，创造一切，我们还怀疑耶稣拥有实现他的目的，为了我们的好处和他的荣耀而所一切的力量吗？
to bring about all that he desires to happen in this world and in our lives. He has all the power that he needs. He is enough. And his power is enough to give us grace upon grace, to give us good thing upon good thing, to give us undeserved thing after undeserved thing.
实现他希望在这个世界和我们的生活当中发生的一切，他拥有所需要的一切的力量，他是足够了。他的能力足以赐予我们恩上加恩，赐予我们所有美好的这些事情，也给我们赐一个我们不必得到的事情。
His wisdom is also enough.
他的智慧也是足够。
We trust that the way that he created things is the best way for them to be.
我们相信他创造事物的方式就是事物发展的最佳的方式。
It is not for us to challenge him and say, well, that's not the way I would have made it. That's not the way I would have done it.
我们不应该去挑战他，并说我不会这样去创造事情，会这样去做这样的事情。
We trust that God and his wisdom made all things as they were to be.
我们相信上帝和他的智慧按原本创造了一切。
In this world, one of the things we must affirm in this moment is that part of that creation is that he made us and that he made us male and female.
在这个世界上有件事情我们必须肯定的是，他创造了一问就创造了我们。
And that is good.
他把我们造成男和女，这很好。
We should celebrate it when God has made one as a male or God has made one as a female.
我们应当庆祝，当上帝将一个人创造为男性，或上帝将一个人创造为女性，我们应该庆祝这样的事。
We should celebrate his wisdom that God made you male or God made you female.
我们应该庆祝他创造男性和创造女性的这种智慧。
We should not challenge his wisdom on this.
我们不应该挑战他在这方面的智慧。
We should not seek to alter his wisdom on this by physically altering our bodies to be what we think they should be rather than what God created them to be.
我们不应该试图通过改变我们自己的身体来改变他在这方面的智慧，使我们的身体成为我们应该成为的样子。
It is his wisdom that things are as they are.
这是他的智慧，事情就是这样。
And that is the best way for them to be.
这对他们来说是最好的方式。
This is also grace upon grace.
这也是恩上加恩。
Then Colossians tells us that in him not only were all things made, but all things hold together.
然后哥罗西书又告诉我们，不仅万物都是他创造的，而且万物也是靠他维系在一起的。
We call this the doctrine of providence.
我们称为这是普罗维斯这个神学观点 ，providence。
And providence involves three things:
providence 主要有三件事情：
preservation,
保存、
concurrence,
并发、
and governance.
治理。
You'll see that his providence is enough to give us grace upon grace.
你会看到他的这个旨意是足以赐给我们恩上加恩。
The first part of providence is preservation.
第一部分是保存。
This is the idea that it is Christ who allows things to continue to function today as they did yesterday, and that they will function tomorrow the same way they did today.
就是基督让事情这样继续的运作今天怎样运行，明天还是怎样运行昨天怎样运行，今天怎样运行，明天也会像今天一样运行。
This is the basis of the created order.
这就是创造规则的基础。
Jesus set things up to run when he created by a certain way, and things will continue to function in that way because he continues to make sure that they do.
耶稣在创造的时候就设定事物以某种方式运行，并且事物将继续以这种方式去运作。而且他继续确保他这样去行。
So today, if I jump in the air, I come back down.
我如果跳起来的时候，我会回到地面上。
And tomorrow, if I jump in the air,
明天一样，当我跳起来的时候，我还会回到地面。对，我还会回到地面。
This is because of gravity.
因为耶稣保持了这种重心重力。
Jesus preserves that order.
耶稣保持了这种秩序。
I have no worry that tomorrow, if I jump in the air, that I will suddenly go floating off into space.
我不会担心明天我跳起来的时候会飞向空中。
That would be very inconvenient.
那可能是很不方便。
If one day people jumped and came back to Earth, and the next day they jumped and went floating off into space, that wouldn't work.
如果一天大家跳起来回到地球，第二天跳起来漂浮到太空中，那就是很不方便了。
It is his preservation that makes sure that doesn't happen.
这就是它的保存，就这样可以确保不会发生意外。
It is his preservation that is the basis for science.
它的保存也是我们进行科学研究的基础。
In its foundation, science is based on the idea that the world functions in a certain way, and if we study it, we can learn about the ways that it functions and the laws that allow it to function the way it does.
从根本上来说，科学就是基于世界上是按一定方式运作的。如果我们去研究它，我们就可以了解它的这种运作方式，以及那种控制它运作的法则。
Where did that come from?
这是从哪来的？
Jesus created it.
耶稣创造了它。
Why does it continue to be that way?
为什么会一直是这样呢？
Jesus preserves it.
耶稣保存了它。
It is the reason you can do a scientific experiment today and repeat it tomorrow and get the same result.
这就是为什么今天你进行科学实验，明天你还可以重复。
It is the very basis of science.
这就是很科学的基础。
People will often say that religion and science have nothing to do with each other.
人们常说这个宗教和这个科学是没有关系。
Well, belief in Jesus, who holds it all things together, and science have everything to do with each other.
如果相信耶稣基督将万物结合在一起的话，科学和这个信仰的话，它是在一起的，它们是有很紧密的关系。
For if Jesus did not hold all things together, science would be utterly unreliable.
如果耶稣没有将万物结合在一起的话，那么科学就是完全不可靠。
It is also what allows technology to continue to function.
这也可能使我们的技术能够继续发挥它的作用的。
The properties of gasoline and the physics that are involved in a combustion engine work the same way today as they will work tomorrow. So when I put gas in my car today and I start it, I can drive. And when I put gas in my car tomorrow, I can start it and I can drive because Jesus preserves it that way.
大家知道汽车的原理对吧？汽油和内燃机内燃机放在一起，这些物理原理在今天还是明天它都是一样的。当我今天给车子加上油启动的时候，我就可以开车了。明天也这样。
Every one of these things is grace upon grace. They are good, undeserved things that he provides to us on a daily basis, unknown and unseen.
因为耶稣就有这种方式来保存它，所有的这些事情都是恩上加恩，这些都是他每天为我们提供的美好的我们不配得到的东西，我们所看不见的这些东西都是他所 provide。
The second aspect of providence is concurrence, and this one may be harder to understand.
Providence 的第二个方面就是这种并发性，这一点可能比较难理解。
Wayne Grudem, who's a theology professor and taught at Trinity, that should be Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. Not medical.
三一神学院的神学教授，这个威恩格鲁德姆
describes it this way.
他是这样描述的。
God directs and works through the distinctive properties of each created thing so that these things themselves bring about the results that we see.
上帝是通过每一个受造物的这个独特的属性来指导和工作，使这些事物带来我们所预测的这种结果。
That's plain and simple, right?
这是很简单的解释。
Let me give a simplistic explanation of it.
我要给你一个很简单的解释。
For an agriculturally driven state, this might help us understand.
我们以我们州来讲解。
God has created wheat seeds to produce wheat.
上帝创造了小麦种子来生产小麦。
God created corn seed to produce corn.
上帝创造了玉米种子来生产玉米。
God created other seeds to create soybeans, flax, canola, sugar beets.
上帝创造了其他的种子来生产大豆、亚麻、油菜籽、甜菜。
And each one of those produces what it was created to produce.
每一颗种子都是产生它会创造的这种原来的这种目的。
Concurrence tells us that doesn't happen by itself, but with God working with the seed to become what he intended it to be.
并发性就是告诉我们，种子本身并不能做到一点，是上帝在种子身上的工作，使种子成为他所想要的样子。
And this is a wonderful truth.
这是个美好的事实。
How frustrating would it be if you planted corn and wheat came up?
如果你种了玉米却得到了小麦，这该多沮丧。
If you never knew when you put a seed in the ground what would come up.
当你把一个种子埋在地方，如果你不知道它会长出什么，会怎么样呢？
One time I planted seeds that I thought were buttercup squash, and instead I got zucchini squash. That was very frustrating.
有一次我种种子，我以为它是毛根南瓜，相反它得到了西葫芦，这是让我非常沮丧。
Why doesn't that happen all the time?
为什么这不会发生呢？
Without concurrence, without God, and without Jesus making sure, that would happen all the time.
如果没有并发性，没有神，没有耶稣来确保所有的事物结合在一起，把设计要生产的东西实际生产出来，那可能就会这些事情就会发生。
That what was designed to be produced is in fact produced, that could happen. Even more, we understand that he is not just working through the seed, he's also working through the farmer.
更进一步的说，就是我们知道，上帝不但在种子上工作，也是通过这个农民来工作。
You see, the farmer plants the seed and he fertilizes the seed.
农民播下种，他给种子施肥。
He may put herbicide on to stop the weeds, and then he'll go out in the fall and harvest the crop.
他可能喷洒这个除草剂来消灭杂草。
So the
秋天就会
farmer grew the crop, right?
对农民可以获得植物，
Well,
可以庄稼。
did he or did God grow the crop?
是他种的吗？还是上帝种的庄稼？
Where did the seed come from? Where did the dirt come from?
种子从哪里来？土壤从哪里？
Where does the sunshine come from? Where does the rain come from?
这个阳光从哪里来？雨水从哪里？
All of these are necessary for the crop to grow, and the farmer does not provide any of those.
所有这些东西都是农作物生长所必须的，农民没有提供任何这样的东西。
And yet God is working through the farmer and through the seed to produce the harvest.
是神通过农民做工，通过种子才能够有收获这样的丰收。
To produce the harvest that he intends, so too he is working through us to create that which he intends through us. And this is grace upon grace.
这是他的意图，因此他在我们身上做工，制造出他所想要我们实现的这个目的，这也是恩上加恩。
Finally, providence includes governance.
最后这个 providence 包括这个治理，
This one is simple.
这个很简单。
Again, Wayne Grudem defines it this way.
维恩的格鲁登博士是这样定义：
God has a purpose in all that he does
人在世上做这一切都是有目的的，
in the world and providentially governs or directs all things in order that they accomplish his purposes.
他按这个原意统治或者指导万物，以便他们实现这些东西的这些目的。
How often do we look at the world today and want to throw up our hands and scream, "What is going on?"
我们有多少次看到今天的世界，想举起的双手尖叫，说到底发生的这个世界到底怎么了？
How can this happen?
怎么会发生这种事情？
We see the ravages of sin on people's lives and on our culture, and see the world and the damage that it is causing, and we wonder what is going on.
我们看到罪对我们的人们的生活、我们的文化、我们的世界造成的破坏，以及所造成的这种伤害，我们就在想，知道到底是发生了什么？
God is accomplishing his purpose in what is going on.
神正在实现他的目的，这就是正在发生的事情。
God is providentially directing all things where he wants them to go. All those things we don't understand are under his sovereign control.
上帝正在按照他的旨意指引一切事物，所有这些事情，我们不明的事情，都在他的主。
He guides and directs them to accomplish his purpose and bring about his glory. And it is wonderful that in a world we do not understand, to trust that we have a God who does.
他引导并指引他们实现也实现的目的，并给他带来荣耀。在一个我们无法理解的世界里，相信我们有一位上帝所做的。
That he has a plan and it will all work out to his purpose. And this is also grace upon grace.
他有一个计划，一切都是为他的预定实现的，这就是恩上加恩。
In all this, we see that Jesus is enough.
所有的这一切，我们都看到有耶稣就足够了。
His fullness as God, as creator, as life, as light, as the one who took on flesh, gives us good thing upon good thing.
他作为神，作为创造者，作为生命，作为光，作为道成肉身的那一位那种丰盛，他赐给我们，这个是带来好的。
Especially we have seen from his role as creator how he gives us grace upon grace.
尤其是我们看到他作为创造者的角色，如何给我们恩上加恩，
That come from his power and from his wisdom and from his providence.
从他的力量，从他的智慧，从他的这个维西斯 providence.
As he preserves all things, as he works in concurrence with all things, as he gives governance to all things, he gives grace upon grace.
当他保存万物的时候，当他与万物相协调的时候，当他治理万物的时候，他赐给我们的恩上加恩，
He's enough.
他就够了，
He is all we need.
他就是我们所需要的一切，
We have no need of more.
我们不需要更多。
So I would close by asking you three things.
最后，我想问大家3件事情。
First, is it enough for you to say thank you?
首先，是不是要为这个足够说声谢谢呢？
Is he enough for you to thank?
他的足够是不是让你可以说谢谢呢？
To look at all the things that we receive, all of the undeserved things we receive, all of the grace upon grace we receive from his fullness, and say, thank you.
看看我们所说到的这些东西，我们所说到的我们不配得的东西，作为我们从他的丰盛受到的这种恩上加恩，我们应该说谢谢，谢谢。
Thank you. I did not float away this morning when I jumped up.
感谢我今天早上我跳起来的时候我没有飘走。
Thank you that when I turned the key in my car, the engine started and the gas still works and the physics still worked that make my car move.
谢谢你，当我转动汽车钥匙的时候，发动机就启动了，汽油仍在起作用，物理的原理仍在起作用，使我的汽车启动。
Thank you that wheat seeds become wheat grass. Thank you that corn seed becomes corn plants.
非常感谢这个耶稣，小麦种子变成了小麦植物，玉米种子变成了玉米植物。
Thank you that you are working through farmers to produce what is needed. Thank you that you are working through me to produce what you desire.
感谢耶稣通过农民努力的生产为我们所需要的东西，感谢耶稣通过我的努力产生他所想要我想要成为的东西，东西。
Thank you for all things. We must constantly remember to be grateful for all that God has provided, for the grace upon grace that we receive from Jesus.
是的，为所有的这一切，我们必须时刻的记住，感谢上帝所替给我们的一切，因为我们所领受的恩上加恩都是来自主。
Second, I would ask, is enough when life is hard?
第二个我想问的是，当我们生活在艰难的时候，我们觉得有足够了吗？
You see, Jesus being enough doesn't mean that he will just make life easy for us,
耶稣的丰盛并不意味着他只会让我们的生活变得更加轻松，
that he will take away every challenge, every hardship, every difficulty.
他会带走每一个挑战、每一个艰难和每一个困难。
His being enough allows us to go through them,
他的足够就是让我们要经历这些，
to learn from them,
从中学习，
to grow from them.
从中成长。
Will we trust when life is hard?
当我们生活艰难的时候，我们会相信他吗？
When my daughter was in junior high school, she was suffering from a number of mysterious medical issues.
我们女儿上高中的时候，经历了一些不明的医学问题的困扰。
It took us several years of trips to the doctors before we were finally able to diagnose what those issues were.
我们大概花了几年的时间去看医生，最终才确诊问题所在。
And that time was very hard for her.
那段时间对她来说非常艰难。
As a dad, it was wonderful for me to watch how that time did not drive her from her faith.
作为父亲，当我想起那段时间的时候，觉得那件事情很美，因为那段时间并没有使她失去信仰，
but rather how her faith sustained her in the midst of those things.
而且她的信仰支撑了她在那段时间当中。
Even now that we have a diagnosis, there is no cure for the issues that she has.
即使我们现在有了诊断，但是她的问题也没法治愈。
They can be managed and she lives a full and productive life, but life is still hard for her and it always will be.
她的医学问题虽然可以得到治疗，但是不能治愈，但是她依然过着富有成效的这种生活，充实而富有。
And yet she continues to trust in a God who is enough, to trust in Jesus who is enough, to trust in Jesus who continues to give her grace upon grace.
生活虽然对她来说很艰难，但是她仍然相信上帝是一个足够的上帝，信靠耶稣就足够了，相信耶稣即使赐给她这种恩上加恩。
Finally, and related to that question, will you trust him with your future?
最后也可能也是相关的问题，就是你把你的未来会交给耶稣吗？
We often have so much anxiety over what comes next. Where are things going? What's going to happen? We worry and we worry and we worry.
我们常常会对接下来发生的事情感到非常的焦虑，事情将如何发展，将会发生什么，我们总是担心，我们总是担心，总是担心。
Reminds me of a moment when my son was 5 and had come home from kindergarten that day. We were putting him to bed that night. We left the room, turned out the lights, and then we heard him crying in his room.
这让我想起了我儿子5岁的那一刻，那一段晚上，那天他从幼儿园回家，当我们准备让他上床睡觉的时候，我们离开了房间，关掉了灯，但我们听到他在房间里哭泣。
We went back in to see what was wrong, and he was crying, and through his tears, he looked up and said, I don't know where I'm going to go to college yet.
我们回去看看他出了什么问题，他还在哭泣，泪流满面。他看着我们说：“我不知道我以后上哪所大学。”
Apparently, they must have talked about that in school that day. We looked at him and said, Jacob, you're 5. You'll figure it out.
很显然那天他们在幼儿园里面可能讨论了那样的那个问题。我们看到他说：“Jacob， 你现在才5岁，你会明白的。”
Okay, this isn't in the script. I'll say. In the end, we went on one college visit, and that's where he went.
我们只是去了一个大学，他就选了那个大学。
None of us knows what tomorrow holds. But as the saying goes, we do know who holds tomorrow.
我们谁都不知道明天会发生什么，但是我们知道谁掌管明天。
Because we can trust Jesus with tomorrow.
因为我们可以把我们的明天托付给耶稣基督。
We can trust that he will continue to give us grace upon grace, good thing upon good thing.
我们会相信耶稣会继续的恩上加恩，把所有的一切赐给我们，不管是好的东西和我们不配得的东西。
Undeserved thing.
我们不配得的事情。配得的事情。
Will you pray with me?
一起祷告。
Father, thank you for all of the good things that we receive through Jesus Christ.
耶稣，我们谢谢你，你是给我们所有的一切。
May we always be grateful.
让我们都每天都有感恩。
For that which you give us.
你所给我们的一切。
Grace upon grace.
恩上加恩。
Good thing upon good thing.
好事年年。
Undeserved thing.
一些我们不配得的事情，加给我们。
Amen.
谢谢。阿门。